Okay, so JavaScript implicit project config check.js. Enable, disable semantic checking of JavaScript files, existing ts.config.json or ts.config.json files. Override this setting. Requires using TypeScript or newer in the workspace. So, what is semantic checking? Essentially, this is type checking. Okay, so it checks the types of your variables to see if everything is working correctly. And by default, it's set to false. So let's set it to true, so I can show you how this works. So actually, there's 3 problems in this file that I caught just because I enabled this feature. And let me just show you one of them. So you can only use a then when whatever you're using it on returns a promise, right? So this NSFW function is not actually, I mean, it's returning a promise in runtime, but it's not returning a promise by default. So if we go and inspect this function, you see that it's not returning a promise, right? It's only returning it after we call the start or the stop functions, but it's supposed to return one unconditionally. So this is a bad implementation, and therefore a type checking is saying that property then does not exist on type NSFW, and it's right. Let me see if we find another error here. Does not exist. Well, not explicitly at least. This is not a good example. And this is another one. Okay. So this is type checking. So if you have a variable that's supposed to be a string and then suddenly becomes a number, or vice versa, or if you have a variable that is supposed to be a certain data type and then it's being used as if it's another data type, VS Code will throw you an error so that so that you become aware of that and correct that, because it's good practice to make sure that you don't have those sorts of conflicts. Not that JavaScript can handle them. Usually JavaScript can convert a string to a number, or whatever it needs to convert to easily, but it's better to do it explicitly. And it's also it also makes more sense for someone who's reading your code, or a few days later or a few weeks later, or to know what your code is actually doing if you make those conversions explicit. So I'm going to leave this option enabled.